Alright guys, so in this video we're going to go ahead and talk about Fiction Profits Academy for 2025, Karla Marie. And this is actually going to be a pretty good one. I'm going to be honest and upfront. Like, there isn't really too many bad things about it. I think that there's some things where you have to kind of, pick and choose whether or not it's going to be for you. And I think that there's definitely some things that could be improved. But the whole reason you're looking at a video like this in the first place is because you're looking to make money online. I was in the same shoes as you guys were like 5 or 6 years ago at this point, just looking for any kind of different ways to make money online. I looked into drop shipping and I was like, that's, way too involved. Everything's made to look way more easy than it actually is. Affiliate marketing, same kind of deal, so much competition. I even tried looking into some real estate courses, which was funny because I had like no money, but all the gurus are like, oh, well, you can just use other people's money, which is like laughable in its own right, right? So something else that came up, within this time frame is, self-publishing. And I'll get into that in a second. But the thing that I actually found success in was this thing called local lead generation. Now, basically, I built a simple website. It looks just like this. I built this 5 years ago, and I haven't really changed it since. But basically, people see this website, they click on this phone number, and go straight to a contractor who gives me a cut of the action for sending him the work. And when you have, 5 to 10 of these sites, you have some decently passive income that you can kind of rely on month to month. Nothing crazy, but at least it's something to help, right? No outlandish claims or anything like that. But basically, I built the site. After about 6 to 8 weeks, it ranks #1 on Google like this, and then it starts generating phone calls. And those phone calls are where the value actually is. But anyway, you guys can figure out more about this stuff on this link right here. I'll go ahead and drop it down for you in the description below to take a look at if you're curious. Getting back to Karla Marie real quick, her program is Fiction Profits Academy, self-publishing. Self-publishing is a great concept, especially when it was like first kind of came out about 10 years ago or so with like Kindle and everything, right? The issue with it is just the saturation. At this point, it's about 10 years old, and yeah, you can make a different book for any kind of random niche, but everything ultimately gets saturated because there's only really a few niches that you'll find success in the first place. On top of that, you have to worry about regurgitating content, having low quality content, and then also with the competition, the way that this is kind of seen is you're taught to go and look for these different niches, right? Look to see what's successful. When you find a successful niche, you basically go in and try to one up that other person and then take the sales. The other thing you have to worry about is staleness of books. So the idea is that you make one book and then it's passive income for its entirety, and then you make another book and it's passive for its entirety, and so on and so on. Realistically, you'll build a book and maybe for 3, 6, maybe a year you'll have consistent sales, but then all of a sudden it will just drop off the face of the planet, and then you got to kind of start that revenue stream from scratch again. Whereas again, my model over here, I've been #1 for like 5 or 6 years, just not changed. With this stuff, it's way more difficult. Also, and I don't think it's necessarily made on purpose, but it's definitely picking the the best case scenarios. It's actually way more expensive to make one of these books than's like really taught. If you really cheap out on everything and like low quality, sure, you can hit their certain numbers that they're saying expense wise, but to get an actual good quality product out there that someone, when they buy your book, they don't leave you a crappy review because of all the crappy content you have in it, you're gonna have to spend some good money on or time writing the book yourself or paying somebody else to write it for you, which is something that's encouraged in the program, is to hire ghostwriters to write these books. It's just it's a lot more complicated than it looks on the front end. Now, I will say they do have 15,000 students, I think is what they say here, and then their Trust Pilot score is pretty high, which we'll get into here in a second. But yeah, they've got success stories, and I'm not going to take anything away from them. It looks like they've figured out something to do, right? The one thing I will kind of dock it on is just the refund policy. One, it's a stipulated refund policy, which is like, hey, you got to write at least a 30,000 word ebook, do it within 6 months of enrollment, blah blah blah. mentions the 24-hour cool-off period where you can get a full refund. But after 24 hours, it's like it's kind of tough luck. Like you're not going to get buyer's remorse refunds or anything like that. Now, the reason why I kind of have an issue with this type of refund policy is if, your students are so successful, which is what it looks to be on the outside because of the different Trustpilot reviews and BBB reviews and whatnot. If they're so successful and there's only like a small few that are requesting refunds and aren't successful, why not just give them the money back? I know that the classic guru excuse is, oh, well, I'm just, I'm holding them accountable. I want them to be successful, yada, yada, yada. That's a classic, guru knee-jerk objection response to that. But it's like, who are you kidding? You're not kidding anyone. That's just some weird gaslighting tactic, in my opinion. If people want a refund, they should have a refund full and clear, especially if, your students are successful the way that they're successful. Because if someone's successful, like let's say, you charge them $5,000 for coaching and they're successful, they make that $5,000 back and more, guess what? They're not asking for a refund. But if you have a lot of people asking for a refund, they're only going to ask for a refund because they didn't find value in your product. And it's like, if they didn't find value in your product, you just give them the refund. It's pretty cut and dry. That's like my personal belief. So that's something I will, say like I don't really appreciate seeing, but as long as the success stories are true, they're doing something right. If you go over to Reddit, you're not going to really find anything except for like some downloads or some older reviews like 3-4 years ago, which I don't really think is fair to go off of time wise. Going over to Trustpilot, you will see their 2,287 reviews, 4.6 stars, largely good reviews. What I will say though, of course, there's some bad reviews and stuff, whatever. Like if we click on the 1 stars, it's largely related to that refund policy. People just feeling like, hey, it wasn't for them, wanting their money back, and everything like that. And then just like a, corporate-y almost response defending the refund or lack thereof. That said, though, largely positive reviews. I think most of it, though, kind of comes down to mindset, I guess. Like lots of people are saying, oh yeah, like this is really helpful or this or that, but you're not really seeing any direct financial results, which I think personally is just kind of weird. You definitely, when looking for online programs and things like that and then joining them, you don't want to, and I think this is what a lot of gurus do. Not saying she does it. She might, but I'm not saying she is. I know a lot of other gurus do, or a lot of fake gurus do anyway, which is they confuse activity for achievement. So if someone's not making any kind of financial success, any kind of financial return, they try to redirect the conversation onto like, oh, but at least you're doing this, at least you're doing that. You're not giving up. When sometimes you've got to kind of learn to cut your losses, right? But that was something that I noticed, like reading through a lot of these reviews, is like, sure, there's a lot of knowledge that's shared, there's a lot of knowledge that people are learning, but it's not necessarily translating to any like financial results that people are sharing. Like if it were me and I joined something, I'd be like, yeah, I made X thousand of dollars per month after X amount of time, and this is what I did. That's what I would share. I wouldn't necessarily share like mindset stuff, which is another thing with a lot of these programs, is it just gets way too much into mindset and, wealth mindset, all this stuff, but not actual tangible wealth, which is what everyone's really joining these programs for in the first place, right? If you go over to the BBB, again, more credit where credit's due, 4.75 out of 5, 129 customer reviews, and again, like largely mindset wise and knowledge. Not really seeing anything about ROI for whatever reason. That's just something I would more want to see. But this space is just a lot more competitive and complicated than people know. The other thing is it's Amazon, right? Daddy Bezos is always figuring out ways to make it so that you can't game the system. And the thing is with a lot of these different programs, and Fiction Profits Academy is no different, you got to use different black hat, gray area methods to have certain types of success in the space. And it's like once those patches, if we want to call them patches, are filled by the people and developers over at Amazon, if your account's doing those kinds of things, then you're going to get slapped, and then any kind of income and books you did have are just going to disappear and go away forever. So it's a risk. Whereas I build a website on Google, and the site can't possibly get taken down because it's like I own it, and I'm not stealing content, I'm not being cheap with anything. Like, it is what it is. That said, again, looks like they have some positive results. If it's something you want to look into because you really like writing a whole lot, or like the whole idea of their business model, definitely check it out. I mean, they seem to have a lot of positive reviews. Just be wary of that refund policy I mentioned earlier, and the lack of tangible, reviews of ROI. But yeah, if you got questions about the business model that I showed, or you want to check that out, go for it. Drop those questions down below. If you like the video or you have any additional questions, go ahead, drop those down in the comments as well. And as always, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.